Welcome to What's Your Story. In life, when the chips are down, it could be a defining moment. My guest today was fired from a job when she was starting out, but her next job elevated her to become the world's 100 most influential people in biotechnology in 2015. Now, that is some feat considering the other person in the list was Bill Gates. Welcome, Dr. Mahaletchumy Arujanan.
Hello, Ganesh. Nice to be here.
Now, you are in the list of the world's 100 most influential people in biotechnology. Now, who was the most influential person in your life?
I would start with my father. No question about it. My father was a Tamil school teacher, and we were from a very small town in Klang. At that time, I'm not sure, we even lived outside the town, not in the town itself. And many wouldn't know that I was actually born in an estate, although I didn't know anything about estate life because I left the estate when I was 2. My parents left the estate when I was 2. But I was born during the emergency, the Darura time in May.
1969.
That's right. So I'm a May baby, May 1969. I was born at home. And my father used to tell us how he used to come up in his life. He used to cycle from Banting to Klang to learn Malay and English. And he, of course, at that time, he went to Tamil school. And he was a very prominent figure in all our life because he instilled big dream for us. You know, I see today parents talking about getting A in class and in subjects and getting number 1 in school. But then my father was always giving us the bigger picture, the dream. He always said, you must be someone, you must do well in whatever you choose, you must contribute to something in the field. So that was the big dream that he was giving. So he never told us you must always get A. So all that was defining moments, and that really changed my life so much.
I mean, when fathers say, I don't expect you to get A, normally the girls will try to get A's, but we boys, it will be the reversed. When he says he doesn't look for A's, we will make sure he gets to see E's. Okay, so after that, so you were growing up in Klang. Okay, how was your primary school and all that? So do you in primary were aspiring to become the world's 100 best person or something like that?
Well, Ganesh, I would say I was a late bloomer. I always thought I was not good because you know what? My father sent us to convent school, which was the further school from my little town, which is called Bukit Kuda. Naturally, all the children in that place went to Bukit Kuda school, but my father had this far-sighted that he wanted us to have very good peer that we mixed around. So he somehow he changed the address and got us in in convent school. So and I was always in the first class from the time I went to school until I finished Form 5. So being in the first class meaning and in convent school is not easy because I came from a family where we only spoke Tamil. I did not understand, I could not speak English and Malay until I think I picked it up later part in primary school. So I still remember when I went to kindergarten, it was a church kindergarten, what was it, Lourdes kindergarten, just beside Convent Klang. And anything that I need to tell the teacher, I have to find another Tamil Indian girl who could speak English, and I have to tell her, okay, please tell her I forgot to bring my book. So that was how I began my life. And my father was, although he was a Tamil school teacher, he taught us Tamil, but he wanted us to speak in English at home. And it was very difficult. He told us you must speak in English, and for us to change the habit was very difficult. But I think my father was very far-sighted because he saw, even in the 70s, I went to school in 76. He saw how the proficiency in English can change our life. And today, I'm traveling around the world, speaking even in Europe, EU Parliament. I wouldn't be doing this if I can't speak English well. So I'm really indebted to my father for giving us that exposure at that age and the big dream. So that was very, very, my late father is just one of the biggest role model for me.
Normally, these children who grew up in a family where the father is a Tamil school teacher or headmaster, normally they grow up with a lot of these Indian proverbs and all that. So was that the case in your life?
Certainly, Ganesh. That was our household thing. So my father will always talk about Tirukural, Atichudi, and not only the Tamil verses, but also the Paribahasa and English proverbs. So he was always telling us all these things that relates to our life, the value, the education, the moral, and all those things. What he used to do is, at that time, we always go on a motorbike. So being a pillion rider, we'll be wearing a helmet, and then we go for tuition, and he will be telling about, he will take every opportunity to talk about all these things, and we will only hear half of it because the wind will be blowing. So, like for example, I can give examples of two Tirukural. Yennum Eluthum Kannena Thagum. So it basically means how important literacy is, and it's equivalent to our eyes. So that was how I grew up. So I just imagine I was just instilled with the value that education is just so important. And the other one, which is not really education, but which also sank so deeply in me, is Mahan Tandai Kaatrum Udavi, even Tandai Ennotran Kollenum Chol. So the meaning is, very superficially, I'm going to tell you the meaning. It is what is written, in written, we are going to do to our father, but of course it's parents also, is when we go out, the people out there must ask, whose child is this? Whose son or daughter is this? That they're just excelling. They're just so good. So not just in education, but I was instilled that I must be someone. So that was actually in me, that I always told myself that I must be someone in the field that I choose. I think people might laugh at this, but then Kamala Hassan was also a big role model for me, because of course I knew I'm not going to go into all these movies and everything, but to me, I told myself, he's one of the best actors. Even in fact, I will call him artist. But I told myself, I'm going to choose a field and be him in my field. And I think all this dream, subconsciously, it just went into me and it manifested somehow.
So after that, you were in secondary school, okay? So then you were trying to, what was your ambition then?
Well, secondary school, primary school, I didn't have an ambition. Secondary school, throughout my secondary school, I wanted to be a lawyer. It was just so deep in me that I wanted to be a lawyer and fight for some causes and things like that. So what happened was, I told my father that I want to go into art stream. Then SRP, at that time, I did very well in SRP. Then I told my father, I want to switch. And he told me, no, science is the best, and not everyone gets into science. The cream of the school gets into science, and it has got huge, it has got so much of future, so you must take science. So what happened was, I took science, and then I told myself, I'll take science just to satisfy my father, and then after Form 4 and Form 5, when I go into Form 6, I'll switch to arts so that I can do law. But what happened was, in my Form 4 and Form 5, I just fell in love with science and maths. And there was no turning back. So I myself decided to do science in Form 6 when I was offered the science in Form 6. But the primary school was very different, As I told you just now, I'm a late bloomer. I always told myself that I'm no one, I'm not good. The teachers don't take a second look at me in primary school. And especially because I was not good in English. And convent school, everyone was speaking English. I remember once I was supposed to write a poetry about mother. And even simple words, there was in standard 4, I think. I couldn't do that. And I was just thinking, I was so shy, embarrassed to go to school. I remember the English teacher reprimanding me, and it just went on. I was not good in maths as well. So can you imagine me not being good in maths and science, and now I'm completely immersed in STEM. So maths was very difficult for me. But I also think the reason is the teachers were not very encouraging. And we did not have someone who could inspire us, especially maybe me, not really picking up all these things. And my father, being a teacher, probably he understood how the school system worked. And as I said earlier, he wasn't pushing us to get 90s and 80s. So I remember taking my report card back when I was in primary school, and I used to get number 23 in class out of 36 students. And being in the first class, I thought I was really bad because there's so many students ahead of me. But I did not see the average mark, and my average mark, I still keep my report cards. My average marks was always 85 and 88, but I still got number 23. So I only saw that number 3 as the big thing, and then when I brought back the report card home, I'll be thinking, okay, I'm going to get scolding from my father. He will look at it, he will sign, and he will just give me back. And I'll say, how come Appa didn't scold? I'm so bad. So that was always sinking in me. Later, I realized that numbers does not matter. It's the average. But I actually do that to my daughters now. I tell my daughters, you don't have to really stress out to get A's. You must be holistic. And my father did that. But what my father did was he did that without telling us. But today I tell my daughters. So, I think it's easier that way. Those days, parents, we always had a barrier. We are not like extremely friendly and extremely close. But I think he did a lot of good things that just sank in me.
Yeah, those days, we don't question our parents.
Yeah.
Nowadays, our kids, you have to explain to them why.
Yeah.
The first thing they ask you is why. So I think the environment has changed so much. So when was in your life, was the turning point, when you suddenly thought, hey, I am good, I can do this? So when was that?
I would say two moments. One is academic and one is profession. So the academic turning point was in secondary school, when I just suddenly, I just don't know. If
For
people,
what was that?
That was, in fact, I don't know what changed from not being good in maths in standard 6. Suddenly in Form 1, I could just do maths. I don't know. Being a science person, this might sound a bit ridiculous, but it could be just the planetary movements, Anyway, that's a joke. But so in Form 1, I was getting 90 over for maths suddenly. And then my teachers were like praising me. And at one point, I can't remember, lower secondary, or was it, I think it's lower secondary. The other students were not doing very well in maths, and a number of them. Of course, we had very good students as well. So my class teacher came to the classroom, and then she made a few of us stand up, about 7-8 of us to stand up. And then she said, okay, you know what? I looked at all your marks, and maths is not so good. So I want you all to look at these 7 students, your friends, and get help from them. And then she turned at us and she asked, can you help your friends? And all that was just an impetus. That was like, okay, I am someone, I am capable, and I think that gave me the confidence. So throughout those secondary school, from Form 1 until Form 5, I wasn't like really the top, but I was always above average. I remember teaching my maths teacher solving a problem when the whole class could not do it. So all that was a defining moment in academic. But then university was okay. Again, second class upper. But you know what, Ganesh, I told myself when I went to UPM, I just studied the system. How does CGPA work? What else can you do in university and all those things? So after studying all the system, I told myself, okay, I'm not going to sit in my room, be slogging for the next 4 years to get a first class honors. I want a second class upper. And that was my target. I just said, I'm going to go for second class upper because I want to just make friends, create my network, and have fun in university. And I did that. So I got second class upper, and I wanted to be a scientist. Then I just, so since I wanted to be a scientist, at that time HIV was just like COVID now. It was a pandemic. So I told myself I want to do virology, be a virologist and find a cure for HIV. In fact, I was like ambitious, so ambitious. I don't know why I did that. I told my seniors, I'm going to find a cure for HIV. Until now, we don't have a cure for HIV anyway. I hope the mRNA technology will help. So then, because I wanted to be a scientist, I went on to do masters. In UPM, I was offered masters by my supervisor, and then, but I said, okay, I think I need a change of place. I want another university in my CV, so I applied to I was offered masters of biotechnology. I took that up, and until then, I still wanted to continue with PhD. But again, the twist happened when I was finishing my masters. I realized that sitting in the lab, wearing lab coat, and always trying to do something, changing the methodology and all these things, I thought, okay, I don't think I'm going to do this. I know scientists do a great job, it's fascinating, but I told myself, I don't think it's me. So I just gave up on my PhD admission, Finished my masters, joined the first job was in a Swiss company. It's called Sanders Agro. It doesn't exist anymore.
This was after masters.
After masters, right after, even before I submitted my thesis, I was already offered a job. So I was never unemployed. So I got a job, and all my bosses, except for one Chinese boss, were also very prominent. All others were European, French, Swiss, German, English, and Dutch. So that actually was another defining moment in my life, because my first job itself, I was exposed to the European culture of work ethics. I had so many memories there, although my stay was very short, because that was a time, 1996, 97, that was a time when these big companies were merging, and Sandoz merged with Novartis, both big Swiss giant companies, and then I was retrenched because we were in a regional office in Malaysia. But they gave me a good notice and compensation, but in between I went to Switzerland. So I would say that my first foreign travel was Switzerland, and that was also, I completely believe in dream, Ganesh, because I always dream a lot of things, and I see the dreams coming true. I always dreamt Switzerland, and I thought, okay, the Alps and everything was like so beautiful. So, and my first, of course, forget Singapore, I've been to Singapore before that, but then the first actual overseas was Switzerland. And after that, I always dreamt of China, because China was a closed country during that time, 1990s. It was still a closed country. And what is in China? It's so mystic, so much of mystery there. And my second country I went was China. But then my job, I took a long time again to really settle down in a job. I always tell the young people, there's a big difference between a job and a career. A job is just a task. You do something, people pay you. But a career is what gives you satisfaction and your identity. Some people retire after doing so many jobs without changing that into a career. So my first job did not give me a career. But the culture, the European culture, the Western culture was something that until now I carry that with me.
So the second job was a disappointment for you?
The second job was a disappointment for me, because I was working in an international organization that was doing plant genetic resources, not research, but we were funding Asia-Pacific organizations, research institutes to do research. My job was more administrative. I had to monitor those research, make sure they send the report back, make sure that my office in Rome sends the funding. So it was very, very routine, and it wasn't challenging for me. And I really wanted something where I will be given freedom to explore, where my thoughts will be valued, where I can explore, and where I can also grow. But it did not happen there. So I resigned again after about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. At one point, my husband was telling me, your full-time job is looking for a job. Because I was constantly looking for a job. So that lasted for about 2 years. And then the next 2 jobs was in 2 local health supplement companies. And the first one, I was a product manager, but I myself was not convinced with their products, the quality, and I wasn't given, there was no transparency. I wasn't given so much of information so that I can train my sales team. So I said, I can't do this. When I'm not convinced, I can't go out and say our products are great. So I left the job. The second job was a big story, because again, a local healthcare company, that was the job that I was fired in 24 hours. I never thought that when you go to work in the morning, you'll come out without a job in the evening. That happened because so many things. I was asked to come to work after 2 weeks of giving birth to my second daughter. I could not get along, and checking in, checking out. The last person who leaves the office is the best employee. So I could not digest.
That's Asian way of management.
The Asian way, yeah. I could not digest that.
Okay.
So when I was fired, of course, it was devastating. I was jobless for 1.5 months. Then I landed in my current job, of course, not as an executive director, but as a project officer. And that is Malaysian Biotechnology Information Center, a local not-for-profit organization, but it is tied up to an international not-for-profit organization which is called International Service for the acquisition of agri-biotech applications. We are hosted by Cornell University in New York in the US, and that was founded by very high-level thought leaders in agri-biotechnology. Norman Borlaug, he's the late Norman Borlaug, he's father of Green Revolution. He is also the Nobel Prize laureate, and then Dr. Clive James and a few other very top level policy makers and scientists from developing countries. They made a trip to US and Europe to see what is happening in biotechnology at that time. And they found that there's a huge gap between the developed nations and developing nations like ours. And they thought we need centers to promote, to facilitate, and to create awareness in all areas: policy making, funding, and regulations, awareness among the public, and research and development, and all these things. So that was how ISA was founded. And then when ISA was founded, they wanted centers in developing countries. So now we have got MABIC, the Malaysian center. We have got Indobic, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so many countries. So I joined MABIC as a project officer. Again, I was lost because coming from a technical training, my degree was in microbiology, biochemistry. My master's was in biotechnology, and here is science communication. And I think at that time, 2003, science communication, no one talks about science communication. And it was policies, regulations, biosafety, and all those things which I was never trained in my university days. And then I was like, what am I doing? But never did I know that was the path that took me to, that gave me the identity of a science communicator. So to cut the story short, then in 2003, I got the job, project officer. By 2005, in 2 years, I saw 3 executive directors coming and going because they could not revamp MABIC as a prominent local not-for-profit organization that could support Malaysian government in driving biotechnology. So when I was offered the job again, I was thinking, this is a hot seat. Do I really want it? And also, am I capable? Do I know all these very high-level international policies and regulations and all these things? So, but I thought, okay, I'll just dive in and I see. In fact, there's another story to it. So I told my boss, Dr. Randy Hotea, late Randy Hotea. I told Randy, I said, and he was Filipino, based in Philippines. I told him, Randy, I saw 3 executive directors. My bosses come and go, and they found it very difficult to work in this current system. I'm not sure if I want to do this. So, these are the bosses. I would say the real leaders, not bosses, the real leaders. You know what he gave me? He told me a solution. He said, okay, Maha, why don't we offer you not the executive director, but we call you the program director. It's the same job. You are going to be the executive director, but your name will be program director. Your title will be program director. So you try it for 6 months. And if you can't do it, then we will bring another person as executive director and you stay as a program director. In another word, it was an ideal solution for me. You know why? Because if I can't do it, I don't have to leave the office and look for another job. And imagine if I can't do it, they bring someone else, and then from executive director, I become a program director. I tell you what, that solution, my boss, that was just, it is just something that, I tell myself, this is what I should be when I become a leader. How do I find a solution so that it will work for everyone? So I was a program director for 6 months, and I went out and contacted all my lecturers. And this is why I told you I wanted a second class upper, because I wanted to network and build my relationship in university. So I was very close to all my lecturers. And my lecturers at that time, from 1993, when I left UPM, until 2003, 2005, they were already moving up. They became professors, they became DVC, Deputy Vice Chancellors. They became, one of them, Professor Datin Paduka, Professor Khatijah Yusof. She became the Deputy Secretary General for MOSTI. So they were already in some very good places. And it all was very convenient for me. So I went back to them and I said, look, Prof. Khatija, I'm now the director for this organization. It's a not-for-profit, and we want to support the government to drive biotechnology. Tell me how we can work together. I went to spoke to my lecturers there. Then I followed them to some seminars and workshops. I'll sit back. I will look at the discussion. Some I will not understand. I'll try to put things together, and I'll make friends with the panelists, with the speakers. I'll sit with them. I'll get those who I know to introduce me to someone else. So I built my network, and it wasn't easy because these things are very, very, very high tech, you see. So I built my network, and then I started sending proposals. I knocked almost all ministries related to science: Ministry of Science, Ministry of Environment, Agriculture, Ministry of Education. And in fact, with Ministry of Education, we did a teachers training program for biotechnology. We brought teachers. We went to each state, and we brought teachers into the labs depending on where we are. So for example, in Penang, we brought them, we tied up with University Science Malaysia, we brought teachers to University Science Malaysia, we picked up a theme, and then we gave them hands-on experience in biotechnology, so that when they go back to school, the pedagogy becomes more interesting. So I went knocking all the ministries, and almost all these ministries, we did something. So this is how I built Marbig, and then I started venturing into international. I started taming myself with international activities as well. So slowly the invitations came from overseas to speak in different countries. So another thing about my career was, so I was already into science communication at the time, and I was already speaking in many platforms internationally. So at that time, something else came to my mind. I was thinking okay, I'm a speaker here. The speaker before me is Dr. So and so. The speaker after me is Dr. So and so. And here I am. I think I'm as good as them, but I'm Miss Maha. So then I thought something is missing in my life. I think if I want to go further, I need something else. So that's when it was like an overnight decision. I wanted to do my PhD. So the first person I told was not my husband, was my father. I called him, I said, Appa, I want to do my PhD. You should just do it, go. And it was just immediate. Then I just immediately shopped around for my supervisor, but it was very difficult. My PhD journey itself, I can write a book because it was such a new field, science communication. There was no one, no supervisor. So I had to find someone who was just a little bit related to it. So I did my PhD, but the sad thing was my father was not there to see me getting PhD and to see the title. I remember once he told me, they call me Lechmi at home. So he said, Lechmi, when you go overseas, you will be known as Dr. Arujanan, right? And that was like, now when I see the name Dr. Arujanan in programs, and I just, it's very sad. And the other thing he told me was, whenever you write any papers, please always include my name. So these are the things that it's too bad. My father was never there to see where I have, how the journey that I've gone through.
But at least his proverb seems to be living.
He's living not only in my life, but all my siblings' life as a legend. He's definitely a legend for us.
So how did you feel when you were listed as the 100 most influential people in the world?
It was ecstatic, certainly, and I sometimes, it also, what did I do? Sometimes you still have the little doubts about you that, do I deserve this? But it changed my mind. So it changed my life. Certainly, I feel very honored. In fact, I feel very humbled, actually.
This was given by the...
It was listed by Scientific America. Scientific America is a very prestigious magazine. It was listed in their special issue in 2015, I think October 2015. It was called Scientific American World View. So, of course, Bill Gates, Melinda Gates was there, and many other they were the top 10, and then the other 90 people were just listed according to alphabetical order. But that was another thing that changed my life. I was also listed as a woman in biotechnology law. In the world, there was 26 women, and only one is from Asia, and that was me. And when one there was a professor, a law professor in US who told me that, Maha, I'm going to name you. Again, I was like, okay. And when this type of things come, I'll just say like, okay, I don't know whether it's going to happen. Usually what I do is I just do my work, like what is said in Bhagavad Gita, you do your best and then the rest is decided. So I do my best, and then when it comes, I'm usually humbled, because I always feel there are many other people who are deserving as well. So it's certainly humbling.
But it was good. It's very nice to have you here today. Okay, and thank you very much to accept our invitation.
Thank you so much.
That's all for this week. We will be with someone else next week. Bye.